Hey guys, welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to be covering global dashboard filters inside Filament 3. It's a new feature added in Filament 3.1, and it gives us the ability to filter out our widgets as well as charts on your, on your dashboard or custom pages, right? So let me show you guys a demo. This thing at the top is the global filter we're going to be covering today. And you can have as many filters as you like. You can have, drop downs, selects, datetime pickers, text input, checkbox, toggle, all the form elements that Filament Forms supports or has. And for example, if you look at here, we have these widgets over here. I can go ahead and use this start time to actually filter the, give it a date range. So let's say from 1st August, right? And as you can see, the revenue, increased. We got more customers and whatever. These values changed live. So it's a very cool new feature. Let's go ahead and actually see how we can add it to our own projects. All right, so before we can actually add this global filter, guys, the first step for us is to create a new custom dashboard. So this is a prerequisite and it's very easy to do. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So open up your project. I have it over here. So in order to replace the default dashboard, we need to first go ahead and create this new dashboard file. And so the way you would do it, guys, go ahead under your app, Filament, create a new directory of pages. And a new dashboard is basically like a new custom page. So I'll just go ahead and create that, pages. And inside of it, we are going to create our new dashboard. And I'm going to call it dashboard.php. Now inside here, we need to basically add the namespace and things like that. To save time, I'm going to copy the code from the documentation. I will also leave the code for you guys in the description below for the documentation link. It basically explains the same things we're going to be covering. But in order to basically replace the default dashboard, this is the code you need to do. It's going to be a simple class that extends the default dashboard class that comes with Filament. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy this, save us some time from having to type it out. And as you can see, it's a simple file and it extends Filament pages dashboard. So that's the default dashboard that comes with Filament. And if you take a look at it, this dashboard is actually a custom page that has like a route. It has, all the default behavior we need. It even has the home icon, as you guys can see. So that's all we have to do. Now that we have created this custom dashboard, we need to actually tell Filament to use it instead of its own dashboard. And the way we do that is we need to go ahead inside our application configs or our admin panel configs. And you can find that under app providers, Filament, admin panel provider. And in this section, under this panel method, if you just scroll down a little bit, there is going to be a section called pages. And you can kind of see, guys, this is actually where the default dashboard is registered, right? And you might think this is the same one we just created, but if you look at the namespace, it is coming from the Filament namespace, not from our own application. So in order to basically tell Filament to stop using it and use our new custom dashboard, you can just go ahead and remove this line. And that's all you have to do, okay? Now, above this line, there is this discover pages. It's basically an automatic page discoverer. It will automatically find all your pages if they are placed under app Filament pages. So you don't need to register them. It basically auto registers them for us. So now that we have done that, Filament will find our new custom dashboard. And by the way, these two, yeah, that's all we have to do. So now if I reload, it will still look the same, but it is using the new dashboard, new custom dashboard that we created. So now that we have done that, guys, we can actually go ahead and add our filter forms, all right, or our global dashboard filter. So in order to do that, go ahead, open up your new dashboard that you just created and add the following trait. So call use has filters for. And this trait is what actually allows us to have those filters. Now, if you take a look at this has filter forms, guys, I'm going to go ahead and inspect it with VS Code. It has a couple of methods, but in order for us to actually customize what inputs or what filters we have, and by filters, I mean like this drop down, this date picker, in order to actually tell Filament what filters we want, we need to go ahead and override this method. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy it from here. You can also type it in, but I'm just going to go ahead and copy it from inside the trait itself to save some time. And that's all we have to do. Let's also make sure we add the imports. So inside here, now we can go ahead and add the inputs we want or the form filters we want. Now this is somewhat similar to how it works inside Filament forms inside our resources. So what I can do is I can go ahead and do form schema, and inside here add our input fields or our filters, right? So for example, I can do a text input, let's say call it name. I can go ahead and add date time pickers. So let's do date picker. I guess we don't need date time. Let's do date picker. Now the name you add here isn't really important. It can be anything. It's basically used as a way for you to get the value inside your widgets. Okay, so just use an easy name that's, you know, readable. So in this case, for the first one, I'll call it name. It's like a dummy input. I'm not going to be using it. But for the date pickers, I'm going to name this one start date, and I'll name this one be end date. Okay, and that's all you have to do. So inside here, guys, you can add anything you like. You can have, you know, a toggle input. You can have as many things as you want. Let's also add the toggle. Why not? So I'm just going to say active. We don't have anything to use it right now, but you can add toggles, checkboxes, anything that is supported by Filament forms. So let's save this. And if we now go back to our dashboard, we should be able to see the filter at the top. So I'm going to reload. And as you guys can see, we have an input, we have a, you know, date picker, a second date picker, and we also have our checkbox. You can also add sections as well. So let me go ahead and add that. So I'll just wrap this around with a section, and I'll call make, and also give it a schema. All right, so now that I have this section, it will have a nice looking card around it. And also let's make it be a 4-column section. Okay, so let's save this. And if I go back and I reload, as you guys can see, we get a slightly better looking, you know, filter. You can also go ahead and add groups if you want. This active does look a bit ugly, so you do need to play around with it to make it look nice. But for now, as you guys can see, we do indeed have our filter. So let me go ahead and remove this active, and I'll turn this back into 3 columns. And this is actually how I wanted it to be initially. So now that we have this, the next step for us is to actually go ahead inside our widget code and make it get the value of these inputs and actually use it when we are doing our query and when we are getting the data, right? So let's go ahead and do that. That's also easy to do. So let's go ahead and find one of our widgets. I'm going to start with our chart widget. So let me open up my file explorer. I'll keep the dashboard open. So let's go ahead and find the widgets under Filament widgets. I'll select the chart widget. Now here, guys, I'm assuming you already know how charts work, so I'm not going to be explaining it. If you want to learn more, I will put the link for my videos covering those in the description. It was the previous 2 episodes. We covered stat widgets as well as chart widgets. But in order to make your widgets support or work with these filters, first you need to go ahead and add a trait. And this trait is called interacts with page filters. So you do use interacts with page filters. This is very important. Without this trait, you won't be able to access these filters you have defined. So it's very important. But now that we have added this, we can actually go ahead inside our getData method and use a property called filters. So we can do this filters. And this is going to be an array. And inside this array, we can access basically any of the filters we have defined. For example, if I come over here, we have this start date. I can go ahead and, you know, access it this way. I can go ahead and say this filters start date and get the value of start date. Now this could be null sometimes. So in those cases, for example, we could go ahead and, you know, use the null operator and maybe define a default value. Okay. What I will do right now is I'm going to go ahead and store this in a variable. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say start date. And we can go ahead and do the exact same thing for end date as well. I'll do end date. Or we can say start and end. So it's a bit shorter because I am zoomed in on the video. And basically inside your Eloquent query, right now we're using this trend package. So whatever you're doing, you can go ahead and actually take these into consideration. Now, because these values could be null, I'm going to do a quick check to make sure that it is not null. So I'm going to say If we have start, basically if it is not null, go ahead and do carbon. So we don't need to parse it as a date object. Start. If it is null, go ahead and use the default value of now minus 6 months, right? So we are basically going 6 months in the past. And I'll do kind of something similar for the end date as well, without obviously the 6 months. And this is going to be end, and this is also going to be end. All right, and hopefully this works. I haven't actually tested it out. So let's see, I'll save this, but it's actually this easy to use. So let's save this, let's go back. All right, so now that we have our chart, let me go ahead. Now it's already right now, it's basically the exact same date, so it's not actually correct. Let's go ahead and set the start date to, let's say 1st November. And I think the end date is correct. Let's see, it is not working. I might have a mistake here. Let's double check. Oh yeah, I forgot to update this to be end date. So it's using start date for both. So let me go ahead and do a quick reload. And as you guys can see, it is now indeed working. So we have from 1st November all the way till, February, which is when I'm recording this video. I can even update the end date. Let's put it January. And as you can see, it's from November all the way till January, right? So it's that easy. And let me clear these. If I clear it, it is going to be from 6 months in the past, which I think is around August, if I'm not mistaken, okay? And of course, I can also clear this out, which is going to be, August till today, okay? So that's the process. You can go ahead and use this filters and get the filters that you have defined. So now that we have done this for our chart, we can also go ahead and do the exact same thing for our stat widget as well. So I'll show you guys how I would do that. Of course, it's up to you guys. Depending on the filter you do, you might have to play around with this. But the key part is just that you get it like this. And always make sure you check for whether or not it is null or not, because it could be null and you are going to get some unexpected errors. So let me go ahead, copy this. I'll open up our stat widget as well, which is this one. So I'll add the trait, exact same process, interacts with page filters. So exact same thing with page filters. And now inside here, what we can do is I can actually add the code here inside this inline statement. So it's up to you guys how you do it. But to make it a little bit easier on the video, I'll just add the code here, okay? So let's do that. I'll come over here. Let me move this to a new line. So obviously this is a very simple widget. So I'm using a count, user count, getting all the users. But what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and use the when, which is basically used to do like a simple conditional. So I'm going to say when this dot filters start date. So if start date is defined, go ahead and run the following closure. And inside here, actually we can go ahead and use an arrow function to save some time. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say fn query where date, query to that is, I suppose, bigger than this. Okay, just like this. So basically I'm just checking if this dot filters is not null. If it is not null, I'll go ahead and I basically run this closure. You can pass an anonymous function, you can pass an arrow function. It's up to you guys which one to use. But basically if it is not null, I'll add this where statement, where date, and I'll make sure it is bigger than, the greater that is bigger than start date. We can go ahead and do the exact same thing for our end date as well. I'll just copy this. Hopefully it's fitting on the screen. It is. So I'll do the exact same thing for the end date as well. And I'll do end date. You probably want to do this, store the value in a variable. We can actually go ahead and copy it from here. So it's a little bit more convenient. But yeah, you could also do it this way so you don't have to keep typing this dot filters end date or start date. So let's do that, make it a bit shorter for the video. And of course, this one needs to be smaller than, or you can do smaller than or equal, up to you guys. And also we now need this guy over here, okay, so to get the count. Now it's giving me an error. I forgot the $sign, this one as well. But that's the basics of it, guys. Obviously, you can, add layers of abstraction, maybe move this into its own service or helper method. I don't want to add too many files for the video, so I'm going to put all the logic in one file, but I'll leave it to you guys to actually refactor this more and maybe move the actual statistic gathering logic or getting. You can go ahead and extract it into its own class if you guys want. So let's save this. Let's go back and let's also test this out as well. I think I have made a mistake, probably with some bracket or something somewhere. Let's double check. I think I have this extra over there. Let's double check if it's correct or not now. Still we have an error. Where is it? Oh yeah, this one wasn't extra. This one was missing one. All right, so now it's correct. Now it's working, guys. Sorry about that. Let's see. I have the screen zoomed in. So on my monitor, it looks very big. I'm not sure about the video, so I'm not used to that. All right, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and test it out. As you can see, on February, we had 2,000 new users, but I'll try to move it to a date range and we can compare. So let's put this to be 1st November, and I'll make this be 1st January. And as you can see, we get 0 users. And obviously, if we compare with the chart, we have 0 users. Let me move this to, let's move back the start date to, let's say, 1st August. As you can see, we had 1 user on July and then 1 user on August. And as you can see, this also got updated. So that's the process, guys, with global filters. You can again add your own filters, access it using this.filters. Always make sure that it is not null, and you can add the query. And I know this code looks a bit crowded and cluttered, so make sure you actually refactor this. Personally, I would move this into its own class instead of doing the logic here. But if you have only a couple of simple widgets, it's okay. You can leave it here and refactor it if you happen to if the widget happens to become larger. So that's it, guys, for today's episode. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section below. As always, if you learned something new, like the video, subscribe, and I see you guys on the next video. Have a great day. Bye.